Dear friends, representatives of the World Jewish Congress affiliated Jewish communities from all over the world, members of the World Jewish Congress Executive Committee, the World Jewish Congress Diplomatic Corps, and NextGen. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this World Jewish Congress call on survivors' testimonies from Hamas's massacres in Israel. My name is Alana Baranov, and I am a proud steering committee member of the World Jewish Congress's Jewish Diplomatic Corps and co-chair of the Women's Representation Task Team. I am based in Durban, South Africa. There are no words to adequately describe the horror of the unprecedented and savage assault against the civilians of Israel by Hamas terrorists that began on October 7th. There are no words for these atrocities, which saw the torture and murder of the largest number of Jews, simply for being Jewish, since the Holocaust. And yet words are important, and that's why today's call is so significant. For Jewish leaders from around the world to gather together and to hear first-hand testimony from survivors of these heinous massacres, so that the message of truth and justice can prevail. These crimes against humanity must be documented and shared. These stories cannot go untold, and it's our job to ensure this. At the start of the call, I would like to not only thank our very brave speakers for being here with us today, but to acknowledge how difficult it must be for them to share these personal experiences when the pain and the danger is still so raw and real. Thank you for your immense courage and for giving a voice to all of those affected by the massacres. I would now like to begin by briefly introducing our speakers. We're very privileged today to have Adele Raemer with us. She is from Kibbutz Nirim, where 4 civilians were murdered. 6 are still missing. We are also joined by Hila Fenlon, who is from the Moshav Netiv HaAsara, the closest Israeli community to the Gaza border, where 20 Israeli civilians were murdered by Hamas. And finally, we are privileged to have award-winning Israeli documentary filmmaker Oren Rosenfeld here with us today. Oren visited the communities bordering Gaza whilst terrorists were still in the area. And he is in the field at the moment, so we are very grateful that he was able to make the call today. I would like to start, please, Adele, by asking you if you could share your story with us.
Thank you for doing this Zoom, and thank you to everybody for coming and caring and listening. Our nightmare began Saturday morning, October 7th at 6:30 in the morning when we started getting alerts for rocket fire. From the second you hear that alert until the second you hear an explosion, we have between 0 to 10 seconds to get to the safe room. So I ran to my safe room where my son was, my 33-year-old son was visiting. And we closed the door, and the barrage was so intense that we didn't even have time to close the iron sleeve on the window. So we just sat underneath the window until it let up, hoping that no shrapnel penetrated the window. At about 10 to 7, we got a notification that there were terrorists in the community. So this really heavy barrage was there to sort of camouflage what was happening at the main event by the border, where in at least 40 places, I've heard between 40 to 80, I don't know the number, it was infiltrated by some 2,000 terrorists entering our sovereign border, infiltrating our sovereign border. We were told to go outside, to leave our safe room, lock all the doors and windows, shut the slats, and to go back in the safe room, lock it, and not go out for any reason. Now, the problem with that is that you cannot lock a safe room. These safe rooms are built to be rocket resistant, and the lock is something that clicks into place so that if a rocket hits the house, the kickback doesn't blow the door open and then you're not safe. But it can be opened by anybody on the other side. So what everybody realized they had to do, if they heard terrorists entering their house, they had to hold down on the handle. I've lived on my kibbutz, which is about a mile from the border, 2 kilometers from the border, since 1975. Never have I been in such fear for my life as I was on October 7th. We started hearing shouting in Arabic. We heard a machine gun fire all around us. They were right outside our houses. I could hear them through the walls. And we started getting frantic messages from other people in our closed kibbutz messaging group saying that the terrorists were outside, the terrorists were in their house, they were setting their houses on fire, and nobody's coming. We have a small group of men who are on the first responders. In the end, there were only 4 of them that were actually active. There was one who's my son-in-law, who was in his house with my 3 granddaughters alone, so he couldn't leave them. And the other members of the first responders were not in the kibbutz. So 4 men held our point for hours. They were so brave. And we keep waiting for the army to come and saying, why aren't they coming? Why aren't they coming? And calling anybody we can, anybody we could think of to come and save us, because there were people that were in their safe rooms and smoke was entering the safe room and they were choking. They couldn't breathe. My son-in-law was in the house with my 3 young granddaughters, age 2 to 8, and he heard a terrorist enter the house. He told the girls to hide under a blanket and to be quiet, and that he'd be back soon, it would be okay. He went outside and shot that terrorist with his own hands. He tried to go after another 2 terrorists who were in the house, but when he got to the threshold, he realized that there were multiple terrorists that were highly armed outside, and he wouldn't be able to stand up against all of them. We were in that room from 6:30 in the morning, and the army arrived on Nirim at about 1. But there were still terrorists all over the place. From what I understand, there were at least 50 terrorists rampaging through our community, setting cars on fire, smashing things, going into homes, stealing, throwing, messing up the homes, trashing the homes completely. And people are petrified in their safe rooms, holding onto that handle for dear life. Finally, at 5 o'clock, they came to my house. The army arrived at my house and extricated us. They went from house to house, clearing out the area, sterilizing the area, and extricating the people in the different houses, and walked us to a central area where they could protect us all. They walked us outside where there were still rockets coming in. There were still active terrorists, and I couldn't understand why they were walking us the long way round. What I realized afterwards is because the normal way we would have walked, there were bodies of terrorists that they didn't want us to be exposed to that scene. So my community spent a petrifying day and night. We were finally evacuated at about 2 in the afternoon on Sunday and brought here to Eilat, where we are right now. And I think that's enough for me, because there's more stories to hear.
Adele, that is just beyond imagination and incredibly terrifying. I got goosebumps listening to you recount it here.
In our wildest dreams, when we imagined infiltration, I asked the people of the first responders, did you ever practice for such a scenario? They said, no, we had no idea. We practiced for a single terrorist, a few terrorists, never that quantity of barbaric monsters. There's no other word for it.
I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for sharing your story. I would now like to ask Hila, please, if she could share her experiences from October 7.
Sure. First of all, hi to everyone. I would like, before everything, to apologize. I have been to 4 funerals today of our neighbors and friends and relatives, so I'm still a bit overwhelmed with everything. So I hope I'll be able to tell my story in a clear enough way for people to understand. Also, I apologize for my English is not as good as Adele's, but I'm doing my best. I'm a farmer and I live in Moshav Netiv HaAsara. Netiv HaAsara is the closest community to the Gaza Strip. And we always say that whatever happens in Gaza, we feel faster and stronger. And that also means that those terrorists who came into the communities, the first community they entered was our community. It started for us at 6:30 in the morning with the first rocket, first red alarm, telling us a rocket is coming. And I was, because I'm a farmer, even though it was a Saturday, I was just about to go and check my farm just to make sure everything is okay. And I was just about to step out of the house when the first red alert came, telling us a rocket is coming. And then that very, very first rocket blew up just outside my house and destroyed my car completely. So we ran quickly into the security room that each and every one of us has in the house. We were there, myself, my son, and his girlfriend, and the 2 kids of my partner. My partner was at work at that moment, and they were there with us. They are from the center of Israel. They're not familiar with everything that happens. And we just came inside thinking it just started another round like we experienced for the last 22 years. But all of a sudden, within a few seconds after it started, the electricity got shut down and we realized we have no cell phone. We can't call, we can't receive phones. We don't have WhatsApp or any kind of communication. And then we started to hear shooting. It was only later on that I learned that the terrorists who came to our community came in with from the sky with like a parachute or whatever. I don't know how to call it. They were just flying in. They had maps knowing where each and one of them were supposed to land. They knew our community very well because they were observing and watching us for the last years. And they came in, and our security guards were just, one of them were just so happened to be outside his house. He saw them coming. He was just preparing to go on a motorbike trip that morning. He saw them coming and he ran in instantly just to take his weapon and also let everyone else know. He called all the communities in the area and told them there are terrorists coming into the community and told them to be prepared. And I think by doing that, he saved many lives. They also called, the civilians in our community that are supposed to give the first answer until the army shows up. In that case, they've been training for it. We have about, I don't know how many people volunteering to do this job, but they were all outside. But the terrorists were all over the place and they committed horrifying crimes in people's homes. I want to tell you a little bit. I know it might be very graphic and I only unfortunately, I saw it all yesterday. It's still in my mind. It's still hurting me to remember the sights that I saw, but it's important to know. We lost 20 people in our community. Some of them were people taking their guns and running outside to protect their families. And some of them were just everyday people, civilians in their homes, where terrorists came in and brutally murdered them. In one house, they went in to a family of 2 people. The kids were out that day, and they were there with the dogs. It's a family that loves dogs, and they rescue dogs all the time. And they have about all the time they have a few dogs with them, and those terrorists went inside and murdered the couple with the dogs inside the safety room. In another house, they just sent like an RPG or something like this into the house. It's like a wooden house, American style wooden house, and it's got burned completely with the people inside. In another house they went in, it was a family with 2 kids, and they started throwing grenades inside the house. The family escaped into the security room and tried to lock themselves and hold in the door handle. And for 6 hours, the father of that family was holding the door handle while the terrorist was throwing grenades at the door and kicking it, trying to break in. It was only later on that they managed to get out from the window hours after. I can't even imagine what those parents felt when they had to fight with terrorists for that long, knowing that they're just outside and they are so determined to just murder them. Another story that we have in the community is a father, a great friend of mine, one of the closest friends that I have. We were raised together in the community. I know him from the day we were born, and he had 4 kids. 2 of them were with him. One of them was in another house with their mother, and the 4th one, the oldest one, 17 years old son, was with his friends on the beach. They went surfing and fishing. The terrorists came and he saw them. He wanted to run and protect his kids, and the terrorists threw a grenade at him, hit him directly while he was trying to save his kids. He died there. The 2 kids were injured and they're still in hospital. One of them is in quite a bad condition. And all that happened when his older son, got murdered by terrorists in Zikim Beach, where they went surfing with their friends. I don't want to go after every person that died because there are so many of them. I just want to tell about one more story that also brings a little bit of light to the story, and that's the story of what happened to my sister. She was that morning, she was home alone she have 2 kids, but that morning she was home alone with just a younger kid. She's 8 years old. And our neighbor was outside, knowing the terrorists are in the community. He was outside hiding to protect the houses in the area. And he saw the terrorist trying to enter my sister's house, and he shot him at the door, right at the door. He just died there. It was a brave thing that he did. He saved my sister's life and my nephew's life. What he didn't know, that in that exact time when he was saving my sister, his son was getting murdered in the beach along with my other friend's son while they were fishing and surfing. So it's some kind of a mix between the tragedy that we have and heroes that we have here. And the other point that it's so important for me to emphasize with light is what happened to Israel, to the society of helping each other. It's like the Israeli found themselves once again. It's united everyone in such a way that it's emotional sometimes to know how the entire country is holding us and hugging us and supporting us. And if we need to try and find one piece of light in this darkness, is that Israelis found themselves again. This is my story for now.
Thank you, Hila. As you said, the details of these stories are horrific, but we can't turn away. It's so important to know the details of what happened. I'm so grateful that your sister is okay. And as you mentioned at the end about the incredible stories of resilience and solidarity that have been shown in Israel in the last few days, I know that the hope of Israelis has really spread to Jewish communities around the world, and the strength of Israel has given the Jewish diaspora so much strength. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd now like to ask Oren to please share with us his story and his.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you, Adele and Hila, for telling your stories. So I heard about this attack. Information started coming in early in the morning, and usually, the first thing I do when I hear there's something really serious going on there is I contact Hila or Adele or Yaniv that live down there to see what's going on, and maybe to come and arrange to come and interview them for different foreign networks that I work with. So I've reached out to Hila, and there was no answer. And I reached out to another friend, a cameraman, Yaniv from Nachalos, and he didn't answer also, which was very unusual because he's a journalist and usually answers immediately, especially when there's some kind of security event going on there in the south. And finally, I reached out to Adele, and she reached out back. She wrote back, "I'm okay. I'm hiding in the safe room. They're outside. I can't talk. I can only whisper." Do you remember, Adele? That
I don't even remember that. I remember that I gave a few interviews whispering to people. I did not remember that we spoke.
Yeah, no, we spoke on WhatsApp. We wrote each other. Anyway, I was very happy that Adele answered, but I also realized what's going on and how serious it is. Terrorists in the kibbutz. She's hearing Arabic outside. There's shooting. I mean, it's the worst possible scenario you can imagine. And I'm thinking, okay, where's the army? What's going on? And it started sinking in that this is something very unusual and very, very bad. Thankfully, Adele was rescued. She even managed to do an interview inside the bunker, the safe room, hiding, so the whole world can know what's going on there. I believe it was on the BBC radio, if I'm not mistaken. You don't remember. And Hila finally, a day after, wrote on Facebook that she's okay. There was no electricity, and she's alive, and which was a big relief, of course, to hear some sign of life. Unfortunately, my friend Yaniv Zal, his wife and kids were all slaughtered in their home in Nachalos, a kibbutz that we have still not been able to access. And to be honest, I don't know if I could handle going there. I've been to filming the day after in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and a day or two later in Be'eri, and in the site of the Nova Music Festival. And yesterday, Hila kindly arranged, I don't know how she did it, for me and the film crew to follow her into a closed military zone, basically a forward position of the army at the moment, to her Moshav. She came back for the first time with us since it happened, and we went into her neighbor's houses, or what was left of them. The blood was still on the floor, the keys on the table, the wallets. They never got out of bed, some of them dead. I mean, it's hard to even start to imagine what happened there, but it's way worse than what you think. I don't think people fully understand the magnitude of this massacre. Just now, 5 minutes before this Zoom, I got a message that in the kibbutz that we were walking around with the body collectors, filming them house to house, Zaka in Kibbutz Be'eri. I was just informed that now, 12 days after, a mother and her baby were found shot and burned, hiding in an attic in the kibbutz. So bodies of people are still being found as we speak. I've never thought I'd have to cover a news event or story even close to this. I mean, as you can tell, I'm pretty traumatized from what I've seen, and I've seen pretty bad things in my life in the army and the Second Intifada. I've been to almost every suicide bombing. But what we've seen here in the past 12 days, and I'm still down here in Ashkelon in a hotel, and we go out every day to another place. What we've seen here is a Holocaust, basically. Hard to believe.
Thank you, Oren. It's impossible to believe and to picture, as you say. But thank you so much for sharing the story with us and for being there to document and to collate the truth so that the world can know what took place. But with that, we come to the end of this remarkable call. And again, I would just like to thank our three speakers so much for sharing such harrowing and very personal stories of survival. I know I speak for everyone on our call today when I say that we are in awe of your bravery, resilience, and we promise you that we will not remain silent in the face of such evil. Your stories matter, and we will amplify them. Amid the ongoing and horrific situation in Israel, the World Jewish Congress leadership and staff, our Jewish diplomats and the Next Gen members, as well as all the World Jewish Congress affiliated communities, remain dedicated to supporting Jewish communities around the globe in navigating this unprecedented crisis and to providing support to our brothers and sisters in Israel. We pray for strength and protection for the people of Israel and Jewish communities everywhere. Our thoughts are with all of those who have lost loved ones, who are injured and hurt, and with those who are being held hostage. May they be returned to their homes and families safely and speedily, and may peace and justice prevail. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you so much for joining us.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai.